All right, let's read it. So, finally, my brothers, rejoice in the Lord. To write the same things to you is no trouble to me and is safe for you. Look out for the dogs. Look out for the evildoers. Look out for those who mutilate the flesh. For we are the circumcision, who worship by the Spirit of God and glory in Christ Jesus and put no confidence in the flesh. Though I myself have a reason for confidence in the flesh, also, if anyone else thinks he has a reason for confidence in the flesh, I have more. I was circumcised on the 8th day of the people of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of Hebrews, as to the law, a Pharisee, as to zeal, a persecutor of the church, as to righteousness under the law, blameless. But whatever gain I had, I counted as loss for the sake of Christ. Indeed, I count everything as loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. For his sake I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish in order that I may gain Christ and be found in him, not having a righteousness of my own that comes from the law, but that which comes through faith in Christ, the righteousness from the God that depends on faith, that I may know him and the power of his resurrection, and may share his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, that by any means possible I may attain the resurrection from the dead. These are God's words. Let's pray. Father, we thank you so much for the words that you have brought to us this morning, Lord. We thank you so much that we can look to you, Father, through whatever life throws us, whatever situation we find ourselves in. We can look to you and know that you care for us and love us. So whoever is here and feels weak and exhausted and tired, I pray that they would turn their eyes upon Jesus, look full in his wonderful face, and allow all of those things to melt away. Some of these things might not go away. They still might be very, very present. But we know, God, but we know, Father, that though we have the presence of sin, we are saved from the power of it. We thank you and we praise you in your name. Amen. So that happened. 1 second. That was weird. Too much weight on this thing. I'm going to actually leave that. That can stay there. Stay there. All right, Philippians chapter 1. Thank you so much, Isaac. Thank you, buddy. Hand for Isaac, everyone. All right, so let's look at this. So we are in Philippians chapter 3, 1 through 11. We are in our series, which is Faithful. And today our sermon is Faithful to Lose, the only way to win. I know this isn't a popular thing to preach on, being faithful to lose, especially in the culture that we live in. To lose is weakness, especially in American culture. It is all about winning. It is all about home run. It is all about the perfect game, right? What do I mean by the perfect game? Do you guys know what the perfect game is? When a pitcher throws a perfect game, not only a no-hitter, but like no hits, every out, 3 up, 3 down, like 3 people go up to like bat, and then like the pitcher strikes them all out. Or like the person tries to hit it and he gets out, and there's no one that advances to second base. So there was a perfect game last night, almost. Did anybody watch it? People are like, you don't watch baseball here. Come on, we need to. Gosh, for the sake of Jesus, become all things to all man. Gosh, I started as a Dodger fan. And God saved me. Saved me from my horrible depravity. But anyways, we look last night at this perfect game. He was there. They ended up winning, but for Mad Bum, they call him, right? They call him Mad Bum? Yeah, they call him Mad Bum. You guys know who he is. Bumgarner, right? Madison Bumgarner. For him, he basically won the World Series for us last year, okay? He's there, and he's in the 8th inning, and someone hits a line drive right up the middle, ruins his perfect game, and not only does it ruin his perfect game, but his no-hitter. They still won 8-0, okay? It wasn't that big of a deal. He destroyed them. He shut them out. But for him, there's a little bit of a loss. It reminds me of a story of myself, because I'm just like Bumgarner, as you can imagine with my long hair. But when I was in junior high, our school that I went to a school that went from like K to high school. And so in 7th and 8th grade, we had a junior high team, and there was JV and varsity. So for the first year in 7th grade, I played JV and for 7th grade or whatever. And I played okay, and it was with all of my friends in my grade. But in 8th grade, right, when all of my friends got bumped up to varsity, I stayed in JV, and people are saying, Josh, you probably were not that good. Well, yes, I probably wasn't that good, but this is what happened. So in 8th grade, all of my friends were bumped up to varsity, but the problem is one of the guys that were on the team who played center field, who I was the center fielder, on the JV team, I was the captain, right? But it's kind of like the first one to lose type of a thing. So they bumped me up for this like series that they were having, the older team, the varsity team was having. So I went out to go play with them, and it was with all my friends. All my friends I went to school with, people that I grew up with, and I was like excited. I was a little bummed because it was like embarrassing going from JV back up to varsity, but I got to be in this series, and they were in the playoffs, and I got to play for them. And the first game of the playoff, it was like one of the really hard ones, like one of the hardest teams. It was the bottom of the 9th inning, and we were down 1 point. We had 2 guys on, okay? We were one run down, two guys on, and I go up. And, I'm the guy that was in JV, right? I was the guy that, people were just kind of like, felt kind of bad for because there were so many people. We had a pretty stacked team on varsity that I got left behind. So I go up there, and I'm like, this is my moment. This is my time, right? You can imagine, and you're like thinking like, Josh probably struck out knowing him, right? But this is my moment. There's 2 guys on. It's the bottom of the 9th, and we can advance in playoffs, right? So I go up, and wouldn't you know it, I hit a triple, okay? I hit a triple. We win the game. I run in. We are ecstatic. We get this game-winning day. Now, a couple games go on. We keep on winning the playoff series, and we're excited, and people are saying to me, man, Josh, you should have been on the varsity this whole time. And I'm like, yeah, I know. You're preaching to the choir. And so the last game, the championship game, would you know it, we're down another run. We have another guy on, and Josh Cisco steps up to the plate. And I'm not a big guy. I understand that. I'm not like one of those guys that were really big in high school and then just stopped growing. No, I was always small, and I pray that I'm still growing somehow by the grace of God. And so I step up to the plate and strike one. And I had a gnarly strike zone because I was so small. Like my strike zone was like this. And for people that don't know about this, you just listen. But I had a super small strike zone, right? So I would crowd the plate. I would talk a lot on base, right? Of course, right? And so I would talk a lot. I would chatter. I would do all of these things. And so the pitcher didn't really like me that much. So he would pitch in and try to move me away from the plate and everything. So first one, a strike. Second one, ball. Third one, it was a strike. Last one was a ball. Full count. Comes to me. 2 outs. It's all on me. I've done it before. Will I do it again? Oh, striked out. Striked out so badly and so hard. And everything that I worked for to show them and show everyone that I was good enough for varsity, it just didn't matter. It didn't matter. It didn't matter about my triple that I hit. It didn't matter how well I played. I struck out. And I lost. And I just remember my team being still so excited. And though I was pretty down on myself, we still got second place trophy. My team still loved me, even though I was the JV guy that went to varsity. And it was such an interesting thing because I realized that the group and the community that was around me that didn't allow my situation to dictate my attitude or my happiness or my joy, right? So what we see here with Paul, what we see here in the beginning of the text, if you look at it, is the first thing that we're going to look at is a misplace of confidence. First, a misplace of confidence. Secondly, we're going to look at a misvalue of worth. Misvalue of worth. And then lastly, misunderstand the gospel. So Paul, in this text, let's look at this. He goes in and he's basically bringing it home now. So I know that it seems like we're at the middle of the letter, but he's actually wrapping things up. He just wanted to let them know, you need someone while I'm in prison to fill in for me. And all of these other people are looking to their own interests, their own self-interest, their own joy, their own life, and all of these things. And he says, but I have people for you. Not only do I have all these things for you, but I have people. I have Epaphroditus and I have Timothy. You sent Epaphroditus to me. It was a bummer because he got sick and he almost died, but he is coming back to you. He can't wait to love with you. He was probably the person that brought the letter to him. And then Timothy would come, his young protege, his young disciple. Timothy would go and serve the Philippian church. And then lastly, he said, I would love to come, but I don't know. They might kill me. They might finish me off here in Ephesus. I'm in a prison, and I am as good as dead, but I will say this, for me to live is Christ and to die is gain. So let's look at this text. The first thing, Philippians 3, 1 through 2. Finally, my brothers. So he's wrapping up this letter. I don't know if you know this about this book of the Bible or this letter of the Bible. We're reading a person's mail right now. Right? You've always wanted to read people's mail. We're reading a person's letter right now. And he's finishing up. He's saying, okay, in conclusion, finally, my brothers, rejoice in the Lord. He is calling us to experience true joy, to have joy in God. You and I will have joy in a ton of different things. What is it today that will make you so happy? Something that will make you so overfilled with joy? What is it? Is it your job if you get a promotion? Is it you finally getting to do what is passionate? Is it for someone that you have wanted to see who you really are and you have the chance to do it, like me with the baseball game? What is the highest form of joy for you? Think about it. I want you to think of the default of your mind. Think of what would give you peace right now. Would it be an extra bit of money? What would give you peace right now? Would it be friends in your life that would love you and care for you as much as you love and care for them? Is it maybe doing something that involves a relationship? Man, if I had a boyfriend, if I had a girlfriend, if I had a husband, if I had a wife, then I would experience joy. Paul is saying, rejoice, find your joy in the Lord. He does not say find your happiness in the Lord. Happiness has to do with your circumstance and situation. Joy is something that you can, like a well of water, you can get a resource of whenever you are becoming dry. The problem is we go to all of these other joys. We go to all of these other loves, and we look and see that they would have water or sustenance or life, and we go in to drink it in deeply, and all it is sand and dirt. Right? Think about it. Think of the thing that you wanted at one point that would give you peace or joy. Okay? Maybe it was a gadget. Maybe it was a gizmo. Maybe it was something like, if I could buy that thing, if I could get that car. I remember when I was 16, I got my parents' VW van again. If I could just get that old red jalopy of a van, it would give me freedom and joy. And I got it, and it was great for a while, and then I spilt, a whole bunch of Taco Bell burritos in there, and it smelled like Taco Bell, which it wasn't a bad thing when I was younger. But that's the point, right? And Paul is calling them, regardless of their situations, regardless of what they're doing, right? Paul is talking to the early church that was in Philippi. And who were the early church? It was Lydia, the seller of purple. It was the slave girl that was saved. It was the Philippian jailer that when Paul was there and he was going to kill, or when he was going to kill himself, Paul stopped him and said, don't allow your job to take your life. And he's saying, finally, my brothers, rejoice in the Lord. And he says, to write the same things to you is no trouble to me and is safe for you. Now, what he is doing here is he is saying, I'm going to tell you something one more time. I'm going to belabor a point in a very, very real and great way, because if you do not hear it, you will forget. We get gospel amnesia. We get gospel Alzheimer's. Our minds, when we hear what God has, we will forget the good things God has done for us and the good things that God has for us, and we constantly forget. And Paul is belaboring to the Philippian church and saying, this is not a big deal for me to tell you again. That's like me like belaboring a point like the one I am doing right now, right? I'm belaboring a point because we have a short attention span. Christians have ADD. We will look to other things and say, that will give me worth, that will give me joy, that will give me worth, that will give me joy, that will give me worth, that will give me joy. And Christ will be on the back burner, and he is saying, I want to let you know, Philippian church, I want you to hear me loud and clear. He says, look out for the dogs. Okay, this will come up a little bit more later. Look out for the evildoers or the busybodies or the people that are actually going around with the sin of commission, right? There's a difference between the sin of commission and the sin of omission. The sin of commission is when I do bad, when I try to foil plans, or I'm going to be a jerk on Facebook or Instagram, or I'm going to get on a fight, with a person and just kind of try to do things. I mean, it doesn't just do social media, but then again, there's a lot of fights that go on there. But trying to commit sin, where you're actually saying, I'm going to practice sin. Those are the evildoers. There's a sin of omission when you fail to do good. That's not what he's talking about here. That's another thing. Sometimes God has called us to do good and we fail to do good. But he is saying, watch out for the evildoers. And then he says, look out for those who mutilate the flesh. Look out for those that beat upon their body and think it is righteousness. That beat upon their body with certain kinds of disciplines, with certain kinds of setup. With him, he's talking about the Judaizers who believe that if you were a Christian, a true Christian, a real Christian, that you would have to be circumcised, mutilate your flesh as an adult. And not only would you have to mutilate yourself, you would also have to be a person that followed the Old Testament ceremonial laws. And he says, I want you to watch out for the dogs. What are the dogs? He's saying, I want you to watch out for people that only have their stomach in mind. Okay? When we hear the word lust of the flesh, what do you think of? Probably sexual immorality, right? Something that has to do with like looking at bad pictures. What do you think of lust of the flesh? Maybe going too far with another individual. Lust of the flesh. What lust of the flesh means in the Greek is epithumia, which is an over-desire. It's an over-desire of anything. My marriage is a wonderful and amazing thing, but if it becomes my over-desire, if it becomes my everything, if it becomes my ultimate, it has become my idol and it is a lust of my flesh. It's an over-desire. Dogs only care, they will eat humans. Did you know that? Dogs will eat humans? Like, it's kind of gross. It's one of the weirdest things. And back in that culture, when there would be people that would die, the homeless, whatever, dogs would eat in that culture. They were very, very gross. I know that when you think of dog, you think of your pet poodle, right? You don't think of your pet poodle? You're like, I don't have a dog. I can't afford one in my apartment. Like my apartment's this big. I had a pet poodle, okay? I'm not ashamed to admit I had a poodle named Bob. His name was Bob, and he was white, and he was fluffy, and he's still alive. He has one eye. It's great. But Bob he's so genius, but he used his geniusness to go into our trash can, pull it down. I don't even know how he did it. He doesn't have thumbs. He could open something, twist it out, and he's like this big. I'm like, how do you get into all of this trash? How do you do it? And he just does it because he only cares about his stomach. So anything that he does, he cares for his stomach. See, what we can do as people and as even Christians, the outside world and this side of the world deal with the same thing. How do you view relationships? How do you view your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, friends? Are they something that fulfills your need? Or are they people to be in relationship with and be in covenant with, that you give and they give, and you go about looking not only to your own interests, but the interests of others? Right? Paul is talking about dogs who only care about their own stomach. Right? People are not things to have relationships with. People are objects to be used. Right? It's like the whole concept of Beauty and the Beast. See, what happened with the king, if you remember Beauty of the Beast, when the young prince turns into the beast, all that the enchantress did was take the inside and turn it outside. He was already beastly in who he was. When he looked at his, like, the little boy Chip, you remember the little boy Chip in the little glass, right? You know that the little cup of tea guy or whatever? He looked at him not as a young boy to love and admonish and disciple and have him grow up. He was just the guy that got him his tea. So what did he turn into? The object of tea. What was the guy, the chandelier guy, right? He was the guy that would light up his schedule. So what did he become? The light, right? They became objects to be used, and he became a beast. And for the beast to become a beauty, the beauty had to give her life for the beast. The beast had to lose his life to become, once again, the beauty. It breaks down. There's a different parallels, but just you get the picture. People are not objects to be used. People are to have relationships with. That they have the soul of God. That they have light in their eyes. That they were made in the imago Dei. And the dogs do not see it like that. The dogs see it as something else. And he says, look out for the evildoers. Look out for those who mutilate their flesh. So Paul is saying, I want you to be aware of people that put their confidence in other things. He goes on and says this, for we are the circumcision who worship by the Spirit of God and glory in Christ Jesus and put no confidence in the flesh. The first point that we want to look at is the misplace of confidence, right? We want to look at the misplace of confidence. We are the circumcision. What does he mean by that? Well, back in the olden days, the Israelites, they needed to have and show an outward showing of an inward doing, that they have a covenant with God. And so the men would circumcise themselves to say, I am a part of the covenant of God. But now, as Jesus Christ made a way and has brought about a better covenant, that his people, the true people of God, would not have circumcision on the outside, but they would have circumcision in their hearts. That they would make a covenant with God in their hearts. That the thing that gives them confidence each and every day, the thing that makes you good, the thing that makes you a person that says, I know that I'm going to heaven because whatever that we credit, whatever we say, whatever we put our confidence in, that is what our true love is. That is what our true desire is. And we have to look at the sin, beneath the sin. So what do we see? He says, we are the circumcision. We are the new people of God. We worship him in spirit and in truth. We don't try to do things and fashion things with our hands, right? To give it to God and say, God, are you happy with me? See, religion says, if I do things outwardly, then I will be approved by God. Christianity says, God has already approved you not by the work of your hands, but by the work of Jesus' hands. And because it was the work of Jesus' hands, you are approved. So no matter what you do it to the glory of God. It's not by what you can do. It's what Jesus has done. Bottom line. You going to church this morning is great, but this isn't the thing that says, oh, how do I know that I'm probably going to get, when Jesus comes back, I'm probably going with him. I went to Golden City Church this morning. If that's what you think, you're missing it, and people are walking up now and leaving like, why am I here then? Like, I shouldn't be here now. What is the thing that we put our confidence in? See, we put our confidence in a lot of things. I want you to think right now, what is the thing that gives you meaning today? What is the thing that when somebody asks you, what do you do for a living? What do you like? What are you passionate about? What makes your life living? What is the thing that you can point to as a backboard and saying, this is what I'm confident in? I'm a good person. I go to church. I tithe. I'm true to myself. I'm free. I'm living my life. Whatever that thing is, whatever you have allowed yourself to say, this is confidence, you are trying to find your identity outside of Christ. See, whatever you put your confidence in is the thing that you find your identity in. Some of you guys work, right? You guys, San Francisco works hard. Plays hard, but works hard. And we think that that thing is the thing that gives us confidence. What's your scoreboard for life? What's a win look like in your life? Is it more money? Is it more friends? Is it a relationship, a healthy relationship? A relationship looks like this. Is the scoreboard in your life saying Jesus is everything and everything else is loss? What is your confidence in this morning? Seriously, I really want you to get into this thing. What are you putting your confidence in? When you're thinking in your mind right now, what is your confidence? What are you putting your confidence in today? What is the thing that is giving you value, dignity, and worth? If it is Jesus Christ, you are chasing after the wind. Because once you actually lay hold on the thing that you have, it will turn to ash in your hands. It will. Think about it. Think of every little major goal and pursuit that you have ran after and you've finally gotten, and you're like, this cotton candy. It tastes sweet for a moment, but then it is gone, and it has left me with a pit in my stomach that I'm even still hungrier. We misplace our confidence in things. He says, watch out for dogs who only care about themselves. Watch out for evildoers. Look out for those who mutilate the flesh. We are the circumcision. We don't put confidence in what we can do. He's not talking about the lust of the flesh of doing all of these things. He's saying whatever is the good thing in your life, not the bad thing. Okay, we know you have bad things going on in your life, but that's not what's keeping you from heaven. It's your own righteousness that's keeping you from heaven. That's crazy. Think about it. He goes and he talks to all of the publicans and the tax collectors and the sinners and the prostitutes, and he says, come to me, anybody that would have rest, and you will have it in me. You will have eternal life. Just grab onto me. Who rejected it? The Pharisees, who said it is in my righteousness, it is in my confidence, it is what I can do that I am the person of God. Today, the thing that is keeping you from a full relationship with Christ, listen, is your righteousness. What is righteousness? Righteousness just means to be approved by, or the righteousness of God means to be approved by God. What is the thing that you put confidence in that if you do it, you are very, very confident that you approve of it yourself? Other people who you're trying to please, human approval, they would approve you. So you're looking for other people's standards and other people's righteousness. And God's is a far third place in saying, well, God, I hope that you approve of my life. Our righteousness is about our approval. Others' righteousness is about how we see if their approval, giving us approval. God's righteousness is looking to God and saying, I want to be approved by him. But how do we get approved by him? So he says, though I have reason for confidence in the flesh also, if anyone else thinks he has reason for confidence in the flesh, I have more. Why does Paul have more? Well, let's look at Paul's trophy case. So, you like that? I told you it's going to get fun. I just need to figure out this bump here. That's not fun. If I fall, you guys can't laugh, okay? Let's see the first thing. Let's look at Paul's trophy wall, right? He's an Israelite. He's chosen by God. He should have tons of confidence of who he is. And he says, okay, I'm an Israelite. I was circumcised. I'm a part of the covenant of God. My parents were faithful, and therefore I will be faithful, right? Because he could not get circumcised by himself on the 8th day by himself, right? That's weird, right? An 8-day-old jumps up and says, I have to go get a procedure, Mom. That's not what happened. The family brought him there and was faithful to the covenant of God, even to the faithfulness of their own son. And he says, I was circumcised. I came from a good background. He says, I was a Pharisee. Not only did I hear and obey the law of God, but I spoke out the law of God. I knew every interpretation of the law of God. No one could pull a fast one on me. I knew the Hebrew like the back of my hand. Actually, Pharisees had the whole 5 books, the first 5 books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, memorized. Memorized. No one's going to fool him. And he says, I was a Pharisee. He says, I kept the law. He's like, for the law, I was blameless. He says each one, he's like Israelite, like to be Israelite, born in Israel. Circumcised, have good parents. Pharisee, have good schooling. Hebrew of Hebrews. My mom and dad were both Hebrews. That's what it means. Sometimes you would have, like Timothy, his mother was a Hebrew, but his father wasn't. So he wasn't a Hebrew of Hebrews. He's a Hebrew of Hebrews. And he goes, in the lawkeeper, I was blameless. And he says, I don't know what this one is. What is this one? Sorry. He goes and he says that the last one is, he says, I was of the tribe of Benjamin. And he says, as to zeal, a persecutor of the church. You know what it means by as to zeal, a persecutor of the church? He was so zealous for the law that anybody that messed with the law, he would go ahead and persecute. And he would take down. Have you ever, like some of you guys are surfers, and when you guys see posers out there surfing, right? Or out on the sand, and they just keep on waxing their board, and the wax is this thick, and they're stretching out there, and it's like, are you gonna ever go out, bro? And you're zealous for people like that to you're giving us a bad rap. You're giving us a bad name. Don't surf. People that are zealous for something that they are confident in, they get frustrated when other people try to front, right? Try to front. They do, right? Some of you guys know this. You guys work in tech, and these people that talk a big game, but then when you see them, you're like, no, and then you kind of get mad. You're kind of like, how did this guy get this job, right? You're like, a monkey in a suit could get this job. How did this guy? And you get frustrated. That's how Paul was to the law. So when all of these guys are saying, have confidence in the law, have confidence in the law, have confidence in the law, have confidence in your flesh, he says, if anybody was going to do it, I win. But he says it's not about that. He put not his confidence in things. What does he say? He says, for the sake of Christ, I count it all as loss. I pick all of the trophy wall stuff. I put it in a box and I throw it away for the sake of knowing Christ. What is on your trophy wall? You're a good husband? You're a good friend? You're doing really good at your job? You're talented, you're gifted. What is the thing that when somebody asks you, who are you, you show them into the insides of your heart and the insides of your house, and you go up to a wall and you say, this is what I've done, this is what I've done, this is what I've done. Josh Cisco, born into a house that goes to Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. Not only was I born into this house, but I studied and memorized 120 verses by the age of 4. And not only did he understand and study the 140 verses, but went to Sunday school and never missed a day. And then it was too much for me, or the kids' school was too little for me, so I ended up going to the main service. And after learning about the main service, I grew up in high school. Right out of high school, I started doing high school ministry, and I started teaching in the ministry. From there, I went and studied for 6.5 months down in Mexico, and I studied under a pastor that had 35 years. And after I did that, I went and studied, and I was a pastor at Calvary Costa Mesa, not only as their high school pastor, but then I went to Moody Bible Institute. I have all of these things, all of these trophies that I show you, and you know what? It's nothing. It's stupid. It's baloney. If I would put my confidence and my identity in these things, I am a man most miserable. I could be so close to the Father's house, but not walk in because of my own righteousness and being confident in who I am. Who cares? Who cares? All of your things, all of your trophy walls, all of those things. If Jesus Christ, the resurrected Lord, is not on that wall, it's meaningless. It's meaningless. Why? Because you'll die. Those things will fade. Think about the trophies that you won when you were younger. You know that we got a trophy, a second place trophy. I don't know where it is. It's in Goodwill. It's at Goodwill right now, and somebody's using it as like a prop. What is the trophies in your life? What are the things that you value, right? We have to look and see what is the things that we value most. We misvalue. We have a misvalue of worth. What are the things that are valuable? Is it the things that I do? Is it the performance that I can make? Is it in what we know? Is it in who we are? Is it in what we do? How we appear is an attribute of wealth. We look wealthy, but we are poor. Paul hypes up the values of his trophy wall to make giving them away seem all the more significant. I wasn't telling you all of my accomplishments, which they weren't very awesome to begin with, but I'm not telling you all these accomplishments to puff me up. I'm showing you that Paul says all of these accomplishments and says they're valueless. Because anything that isn't about love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, if it does not extend from this life to the next life. See, what you do in your job is awesome and it is important. And if it is created, I'm not taking that away. I am saying, but how you do it is important. That is the thing that lasts. If God has made you amazing at business, but you don't use that ingenuity for the case of Christ, for the kingdom of Christ. When you see him that day, do you think he's going to care about your 401k? Do you think he's going to care about your portfolio? It doesn't work there. You can use the ATM of heaven, it's going to be like, denied, this doesn't work. What are you trying to buy anyways? Everything's free up here. Paul hypes the value of the trophy wall to make giving them away seem all the more significant. He does not downplay the worth of these things. He increases the value of knowing Christ, right? What Paul considers most valuable, he is willing to exchange for knowing Christ. But wait, there's more. He says that I want to know him in the power of the resurrection. See, this is the problem with gifts. God has given you gifts, right? Not only the people in your life, not only the talent that you have, but John Calvin says that our hearts are idol factories, okay? And we take the good gifts of God and then we turn them into an idol. I'm not talking about a wooden idol. I'm not talking about a stone idol that we go and it's in the corner of our room and then we bow down to. I'm talking about a good gift that God has given to you, whether it's a wife, husband, job, passions, gifts, talent. We take that and we crystallize them into a God and we worship them. God says, I will give you good gifts, but when they become ultimate gifts, they're horrible things. They will destroy you. They will not give you joy. They will not give you satisfaction. They will not give you confidence in the next life. We have a misvalue of worth, right? I ask you, what is the sweetest thing that you've ever smelt? What is the most satisfying taste that you've ever tasted? What is the most beautiful times of deep fellowship where you laughed so hard you cried? What is the most wonderful accomplishment that you can look to in your mind and say, that's it? Paul is saying these things are foretastes and echoes of glory divine. What's a foretaste? Foretaste is it's a little sample. It's a little something of saying, hey, these good things, they're not everything, so don't get wrapped up in these little things that will fade away. Put your confidence in Christ. Don't let the values of this world and the titles of this world trip you up. Look what Paul says. He says, but whatever gain I had, I counted as loss for the sake of Christ. Indeed, I count everything as loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. For his sake, I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish. That word rubbish talks about, he's talking about, when he was talking about the dog in the beginning, he's using the idea of dung. That word rubbish means dung, and it's actually slang. So think of the word dung in English. That's a bad word, right, that we're not allowed to say. Paul says it in Greek, right? I won't use the word. It's like, I was saying it to Shay, and she's like, don't say that word. I'm like, it's in Greek, though. No one will know. So he says it's dung. It's refuse. I count it all loss in order that I may gain Christ. Today, what is the sweetest and wonderful thing that you have made into a God in your life? I'm not trying to tell you to say, oh, that's dung, it's ridiculous, it's stupid. But if you bring Christ into the room, it becomes that thing. It's one thing, Jonathan Edwards says, and this was huge for me. It's one thing to know that honey is sweet, and it is another thing to taste honey and experience its sweetness. right? I can know that God is good and God is wonderful and God is all these things, but until I experience it, I'm just handing out brochures to a place I've never been. Paul is saying, I count everything as loss. Why can you count things as loss? I'm asking you, what is the thing today at Golden City Church, in this moment, listen, that if you lose, you would not want to live? Is it a family member? Is it a relationship? Listen, don't let this moment go, okay? Listen, what can you lose right now that if you do, you would be so bitter? Is it your health? Is it your health? Is it friendship, or is it people? Hey, those things are bummers. I'm not saying that you can't cry, but to not be able to have hope and go on, what is that thing? Guys, the good news is this today. Because Jesus lost, right? Because Jesus won and was victorious, we are free to lose. Listen. Because Jesus won on the cross of Calvary, and everything that he did was the thing that gives us life everlasting, we can lose. I know you've been working hard for this job title. I know you've been working very, very hard on your marriage. I know you've been working very, very hard on your relationships. I know you've been trying and you've been exhausted and you've been tired. But get this, let the weight drop from your shoulders right now. Because Jesus won and did everything for us, the approval that we totally want, because he won, we can lose. Because Jesus Christ is strong, we can be weak. Are you hearing this? I know this sounds elementary, but you need to believe this, because if you don't believe this, you're going to constantly look at things as gain when he's saying it is a loss for knowing Christ. Your value system is a mess. Your confidence system is a mess. Your gospel is a mess. Your gospel is a mess. We think if we obey God, then he will love me. And he says, no, I love you. But God demonstrates his love for us in this. While we were still sinners and stupid in our own way and not worthy of anything, he died for us, loved us, and he had made unworthy people worthy. You are free to lose today because he won. That is great news. That is great. Can I get an amen? Amen, right? Today, you can walk up with your head high. Why? Because his head hung low on the cross of Calvary. Today, God could see every work that you have done and say, I am so proud of what you have done today. I can't believe you got that job, or you got that offer, or you made that thing. I'm so proud of you. Why? Because when Jesus Christ was hanging on the cross that day, God turned his head from Jesus and looked away. We can have the approval of God because Jesus was cast out. We can win by losing. Stop running after things that don't matter. We must understand the gospel. I want you to listen to this quote by Paul Zoll. If I can do enough of the right things, this is the gospel that we believe, I will have established my value. Identity is the sum of my achievements. Everything that I do, that's the sum of my achievements. Hence, if I can satisfy the boss, meet the needs of my spouse and children, and still pursue my dreams, then I will be somebody. In Christian theology, such a position is called justification by works. It assumes that my worth is measured by my performance. Conversely, it conceals a dark and ghastly fear. If I do not perform, I will be judged unworthy. To myself, I will cease to exist. Let's pray. God, I pray for Golden City Church right now. I pray for myself right now. You know the idols, the good things that you have given me, that I've turned into idols. And you know that I say, God, you can touch anything in my house, but you don't touch that thing. You don't touch that trophy wall. You do not touch those things. but for the sake of knowing you fully. And not knowing just a bare minimum view of you, not some cartoon, two-dimensional view of who you are, but the whole thing of Jesus Christ, and experiencing the beautiful foretaste of glory divine, experiencing the whole thing. We do not want to worship a shadow. We want to worship the real thing. We don't want to worship a mere image of you. We want to worship you, and you have made a way for that today. God, we can't do it apart from ourselves. Because we put confidence in the things that we can do. Our value system's so messed up. Yeah, I can serve at Golden City Church, but it would impede upon my brunch time. God, forgive us. We've been given so much, and the most that we do for you is so little. Lord, I pray that Golden City Church would count it all as loss for the sake of knowing you. Lord, you say that there's a way to know you, and it's in the body and the blood. Knowing that the blood says in the juice that we take in communion that without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sins. And we want to be forgiven for what we have done. We have rebelled against you. We have ran after lovers less wild than you. Because we don't know how to tame you, God, we try to tame and control other things and they become our idols. Forgive us. Lord, in this body that was broken, this bread that symbolizes that you were broken so that we could be made whole. Lord, I pray that as Paul says, I do not care of belaboring this point. Watch out for people that think it's all about them. Because Jesus plus nothing equals everything. Because Jesus won, we can lose. Let us find our identity in him. God, I think it's a beautiful thing that in marriage, you share the halves of all suffering, but you also share the doubling of all joys. Lord, I pray that we can share in the sufferings with you in this life, with our church body, but we can also share the doubling of the joy. We pray these things in your name. Amen.